Curtis Blaydes versus Alexander Volkov takes place this weekend in the main event of UFC Fight Night Vegas 3. Blaydes versus Volkov, they're the main event. It's an amazing main event. I'm looking forward to it. What a heavyweight clash. However, Blaydes is in a pretty tricky situation right now because I know for a fact that if he does beat Alexander Volkov, which I think that he will, by ground and pound in the third round, he will be calling for a title shot, which he's not going to get because Francis Ngannou exists. And Francis Ngannou's resume of beating Curtis Blaydes twice also exists. So Curtis Blaydes is in a pretty tricky situation, but I think he's in a very necessary learning situation where he doesn't have to be thrown to the wolves just yet, and he can have some very good matchups for himself, which Alexander Volkov is, where he can improve and get better for the eventual time that he is going to actually get the Francis Ngannou trilogy. I think that will eventually happen. Even though he's lost to Ngannou twice, you could sell the narrative that the first one was a doctor stoppage that Blaydes was kind of, in some moments, getting the better of. They could sell that as a trilogy. Listen, they're talking about Shevchenko versus Nunes 3. I'm sure they will do Blaydes versus Ngannou if there's no other choices. Blaydes right now just has to keep beating people, and beating people he is. He just beat JDS on the feet via strikes. If you told me 2 years ago that Curtis Blaydes, the guy I saw fight Mark Hunt, was going to beat Junior Dos Santos via strikes, I would call you crazy. That just shows you how much Curtis Blaydes is improving every single time he goes out there. And right now, it's a tricky test, but I think he's going to get the better of Alexander Volkov. Just by recent resume, you look at the pair of them, Curtis Blaydes has been way more active. He's also been more active against better opponents. He's taken on guys like Junior Dos Santos, legend of the heavyweight division, always tricky to get past. He went and completely schooled Blaydes over 5 rounds, which is hard for other people in the division to say. Everyone seems to fight Blaydes and end up with a close split decision win, but Junior Dos Santos dominated for 5 rounds and just outclassed him on the feet. Curtis Blaydes destroyed him. Then he beat Shamil Abdurakhimov before that. Before that, he beat Justin Willis, who is no slouch as well, but of course, Big Titty went home. He just got completely ragdolled by Curtis Blaydes, but the same with Shamil Abdurakhimov. I just don't think that Alexander Volkov's resume matches up whatsoever in terms of activity. He's way less active than Curtis Blaydes recently. He's coming off a bit of a suspension. He was supposed to fight Junior Dos Santos not too long ago, but before that he fought Greg Hardy, and that wasn't a good performance. And I do want to talk about the Greg Hardy performance, because although Alexander Volkov completely outstruck Greg Hardy every single round and came away with a 30-27, you should be annihilating Greg Hardy if you are a top 10 heavyweight in the UFC. In my opinion, if Curtis Blaydes fought Greg Hardy, what would your guys' prediction be? I would predict that Curtis Blaydes is going to slam Greg Hardy on his head in the first round and beat his brain into a pulp, earning a first round TKO finish in brutal, dominant fashion. I would not predict to you that Curtis Blaydes is going to edge out every round. Now, of course, there's a difference in styles, but I just feel as though Curtis Blaydes is on another level in the heavyweight division, and Alexander Volkov, even in his fight with Fabricio Werdum right now can't outstrike Alexei Olenek. You know, I know this was back in the day, but that might have been the last hurrah of Fabricio Werdum when he took on Alexander Volkov at UFC London. He got KO'd. Is it an older Werdum? And then you go through Alexander Volkov's resume even more. Before he beat Werdum, he beat Stefan Struve. Maybe another older guy on his way out of the game. Before he beat Stefan Struve, he beat Roy Nelson. Maybe another older guy on his way out of the game. Before that, he beat Timothy Johnson. You know, like, the resume just doesn't match up. He's lost to Chuck Congo. You look at Curtis Blaydes, he's taken on Shamil Abdurakhimov, who I think is still a threat in the heavyweight division and an underrated fighter in the heavyweight division as well. 20-5, fought good opponents, beat Marcin Tybura, finished him, beat Andrei Arlovsky, beat Chase Sherman, who's now come back and proved that he's not done. I just feel as though Curtis Blaydes has a way better resume, and also I want to talk about this because the smaller cage is going to favour Curtis Blaydes so much, because in the centre of the octagon, and when Curtis Blaydes can't pin you against the cage, he does have trouble taking guys down. Now, of course, he can take certain guys down, but the more successful takedowns that Curtis Blaydes goes for are when he's got his opponent against the cage, because he can use the cage to flatten his opponent against it, rip their legs out from underneath them. That's what Curtis Blaydes does well. Gets in deep on a double leg, gets his hands tied together, and just slides him out from underneath him like a John Jones DC style takedown. That's what Curtis Blaydes looks for very often. Alexander Volkov is a tall fighter. Really tall. When you're a tall fighter, but you don't have the dexterity and the speed in the scrambles, which Alexander Volkov doesn't have, you're just a taller guy with a higher centre of gravity. Your legs are going to be ripped out from underneath you way easier than a guy who's a little bit shorter and sturdier. This is why DC is such a great wrestler. However, Curtis Blaydes is going to win this fight. I like Alexander Volkov, but let's just say that Greg Hardy performance has left a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth. Call it ring rust because he was out for a little bit before then. I don't know if I'm willing to call it that. I think he's just a good striker and better than some, but this ain't a striking match. This is not a striking match with Curtis Blaydes. There is going to be some strikes thrown, and I wouldn't even be surprised because Alexander Volkov doesn't really have one-punch KO power. If Curtis Blaydes in the first round decides to mix it up on the feet with Alexander Volkov a little bit, I think he's going to. But with that smaller cage, Curtis Blaydes' game plan is going to be to usher Alexander Volkov against the cage. Volkov's game plan is going to be to move, use his footwork, and keep away from Blaydes and keep at distance and just outstrike him. Throw those front kicks that he likes, throw the leg kicks that he likes. He throws a good body kick as well, which is very easy for him because a body kick for him could be a head kick against his opponent. To be honest with you, he's that tall in the octagon. Either way, when your game plan is to create space and get on the outside and pick someone apart from range, in a smaller cage, and the other guy's game plan is to get you to the cage, which is now smaller, usher you around and bully you once you're against the cage to take you down, I'm going to favour Curtis Blaydes here. There could not... I wondered for a second, why would Curtis Blaydes take this fight? He has nothing to gain here. He's in a main event. I understand that as well. He's going to build his profile, but I think he understands. Listen, I'm going ahead with this shit. This fight was supposed to be signed at UFC Saskatoon before, remember, last week. Got cancelled, but Blaydes wanted to fight. He was adamant that he wanted to fight, and I think that the smaller cage played a huge impact in that, because Curtis Blaydes knows that he's got every advantage in this fight. It's kind of been set up for Blaydes to win. That's why he's such a big favourite. I think if the atmosphere and the conditions were different, maybe Blaydes wouldn't be such a huge favourite. If this was just a fight on the main card of a normal UFC pay-per-view, I think those odds would be a little bit closer, but because of the conditions, I'm definitely going to be going with Curtis Blaydes. I'm not going to put a bet on him. I wouldn't advise anyone to bet on him. He's a very big favourite and things could go wrong. We know how the heavyweight division works, but I just feel like, look, you've got a guy in Alexander Volkov who doesn't have one-punch KO power. You've got a guy in Curtis Blaydes who's got a wicked sick chin, who didn't, and I know a lot of people can't really say this, didn't get put out cold straight away by Francis Ngannou. In the first fight, he got battered, he had his eye swelled up, but, you know, he was doing some takedowns, he was doing good, he didn't get KO'd, it was a doctor stoppage, but still... a win for Francis Ngannou. The second fight came around, and Ngannou flattened him a couple times, but then Blaydes did something we don't normally see people do when they get hit by Ngannou. He got back up a couple times, showing that his chin has that inherent recovering ability like the Masvidals do. That kind of non-switch off brain power is something that's going to come in handy against Alexander Volkov, who doesn't have good power in the first place. I just think that Volkov doesn't have the power to garner Blaydes' respect. I think Blaydes is going to use great footwork, get on the inside, mix it up on the feet in the first round, push him against the cage, drag the legs out from underneath him. I said at the start of the video I'm going to pick a third round TKO. I actually think as the fight goes on with Curtis Blaydes, if we do get into those third and fourth rounds, we're going to see a less likely chance of him finishing things because he's conscious of there being 5 rounds. Usually happens in heavyweight... Oh my god, my voice. Usually happens in heavyweight bouts because once they get into the third round, they realise, hang on, if I'm going to burn all out for a finish here, we've got 2 rounds after this. I'm a heavyweight. I know I'll gas out if we go into those deeper waters. So Curtis Blaydes, if he doesn't get the finish in the first 2, I feel like it's going to be a decision, but I do feel like he'll get the finish at the start of the second round. The first round will be feeling things out. Might be a little bit of a stalemate. He's going to throw some leg kicks. He's going to see the timing of Alexander Volkov, see how he can usher him and manipulate his movement against the cage. And in the second round, now that he's downloaded the information, because the fight IQ of Curtis Blaydes is very underrated, he's going to go out there at the start of the second, take into consideration what he's learned in the first round, usher Volkov against the cage, drag his legs out from under him and pound his head into oblivion. Curtis Blaydes hits hard, he's got a devastating ground and pound. Recently he's on fire in the heavyweight division, and I feel like right now, if I had to pick any heavyweight to beat Francis Ngannou, this new patient Francis Ngannou's got a little bit better at grappling, a little bit better at cardio, a little bit more patient, I would maybe pick Blaydes to do it. Out of anyone, of not including Stipe and DC, maybe even including Stipe and DC, Blaydes has every chance against Ngannou in a trilogy, and this is why I still don't think Ngannou would be a huge favourite if they did that trilogy. Blaydes has every chance, and the odds makers know this, and the UFC brass knows this. Everyone who watches the sport understands that Blaydes has every chance of sprinting across the octagon, double-legging Ngannou, and completely obliterating him in the first round. Is that going to happen? Is there a higher chance of that happening than Ngannou KOing him in the first round? Probably not. But there is that chance, and that's the danger that Blaydes brings to the table at the top of the heavyweight division. Is he going to get a title shot after this? I don't feel as though that's going to happen. I think he's going to call for it, and that's going to be a good storyline coming into his eventual title shot anyway, if he does keep winning. If you're the guy who keeps on calling for a title shot, and you're sitting at the top of the division, you sort of end up with this Tony Ferguson effect, and the fans rally around you. I think if Blaydes keeps winning, beats Volkov, then maybe takes on the winner of a fantasy matchup I've made between Alistair Overeem and Derek Lewis, then he can get his title shot. He'll be more improved by then as well. He's improving every single time. He's young for a heavyweight. I just think the advantages are all his in this fight. And let me just see the reach real quick, because when you're the shorter fighter with a longer reach, let me see what the reach is saying. Equal reach. Volkov is way taller than him. Equal reach. It's going to be difficult for Volkov to get on the inside, being the guy with same reach as the guy he's fighting. I just don't like it. Even that, on top of everything I just said, smells to me. Blaydes is heavier as well. He's stronger. I think he's going to get the job done against Volkov. He's going to have to keep fighting, but he'll improve his skill set. He'll improve his fight IQ. He'll improve his experience level. He'll improve his contract. There is no damage being done by Blaydes keeping on taking on contenders. And let's face it, if he fought Alistair Overeem versus Derek Lewis winner, he'd probably smash them as well. Blaydes is going to be a beast come 2021. We'll see how active he stays, but I think that he gets the job done by TKO in the second round. Blaydes gets the win. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. And for Alexander Volkov, listen, you've got a tough task ahead of you. I wish you luck. He obviously has a chance of winning. Those front kicks to the body are probably going to come in handy just to stick something in Blaydes' way, so he can't just dive recklessly for takedowns instead of running into a front kick. That's what Volkov should be looking for. But, you know, Volkov, I don't think it's going to go well for him. And if he does lose, listen, Alexander Volkov versus Blaydes, both their names end with "ov." Am I a genius? Probably. Like and subscribe. Click that button there. Goodbye.